Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to present the ALOUD podcast, a new way to make the past content on the ALOUD Archives page more accessible. But before we dive into the details, I'd like to introduce you to our design team. I'm Arthur, and alongside me are Lois, Celia, Michelle. Together, we've collaborated to bring this vision to life. The two biggest challenges with launching a podcast are the organization of media content and efficient allocation of limited library resources to launch a podcast. To tackle this challenge of organization of media content, we propose that LFLA uses an automated tagging system. We've also created a strategic roadmap outlining grants, processes, roles, and responsibilities to produce this podcast. In 2023, 80% of ALOUD's audience listened on podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And this data highlights the importance of optimizing the listening experience for the ALOUD Archives program. After conducting an ethnography, we found that LFLA effectively attracts niche audiences, particularly around specific topics. For example, the dedicated following on the Los Angeles Public Library photos account demonstrates a strong potential for building a dedicated audience around the ALOUD podcast series. And our research also suggests that the ALOUD series is naturally suited for a podcast format. Therefore, we should take advantage of this and create a way to re-engage current users and promote ALOUD's content.
Through our survey data from ALOUD attendees, we found that 90% of them describe ALOUD's content as culturally enriching and educational. 40% of respondents primarily use the archives to discover new ideas or hear from specific speakers. So we focused on designing for lifelong learners as our target user. From our website audit, we observed that the current ALOUD content has no centralized metadata structure as seen here in the episodes page. Furthermore, there aren't any features such as related tags or related content that keep users exploring. Lastly, the current ALOUD Archives page doesn't feature all of the content, especially content from the past few decades. In our interview with Jorge Martinez, ALOUD's programs coordinator, he highlighted a significant challenge the team faces, a shortage of manpower and resources. This limitation impacts ALOUD's ability to sustain current operations, let alone expand them. For ALOUD to achieve its goal of creating a podcast, it will need to prioritize resource allocation and seek external support. This insight reinforces the importance of strategic partnerships and resource planning to help bring ALOUD's content to a wider audience.
These challenges led us to ask the question, how might we explore opportunities to make past content on ALOUD Archives more accessible and engaging for lifelong learners? We examined a variety of similar podcasts to gather insight to the ALOUD Archives. By analyzing their formats, storytelling techniques, we aimed to refine and develop our distinctive vision. Moth Radio Hour features true stories, while Radio Lab explores diverse topics through great storytelling. Our main proposal for the ALOUD Archives is to create a podcast. This podcast will enhance visibility for the brand and monetize current media content. This podcast will expand on ALOUD events through conversations with speakers, foundation members, and other guests. Based on the numbers from 2023, with roughly 238,000 listeners a year, LFLA could make roughly $1,400 with one ad per episode. This revenue was calculated based on a CRM of $25. We also did some research on potential people you could outsource the podcast to. A lot of podcast editors will provide professional audio treatment and color grading on tracks. LFLA can also hire freelance composers to create custom jingles or custom music compositions to create an audio-based experience for the podcast. Since LFLA has tight resources, we would recommend hiring a digital media coordinator who will be responsible for doing things like writing titles, writing descriptions, publishing, and organizing old content. Finally, Jessica or another staff member could record the custom intro and outro for the podcast. We created a roadmap outlining the process on how the podcast can be created. With the current ALOUD live event recording process, we wanted to just add a few additional steps after the recording of the live event. The platform we would like to recommend is Buzzsprout because it's easy to use, it's inexpensive, and it will help you host and promote the podcast.
One key opportunity we identified is the implementation of a tagging system for tracking podcast episodes. This tagging system will allow the team to categorize content efficiently, making it easy to organize, locate, and manage episodes. By streamlining content organization through consistent tags, the team can enhance productivity and maintain ALOUD's media content. To help streamline the organization and tagging, we recommend using Content AI. This tool offers AI-based content tagging, leveraging machine learning to automatically analyze and categorize digital content by themes, topics, and attributes. Grants are a good way to fund the podcast because they provide financial support without the immediate pressure to monetize, allowing LFLA to focus on producing high-quality content that engages and resonates with its audience. Some future considerations we'd like to pursue, if given more time, would be expanding the podcast to include exclusive interviews of guests and speakers, connecting the podcast to the website to encourage a cohesive experience, creating marketing materials such as posters and bookmarks to promote the podcast during in-person ALOUD events, and allowing listeners to submit questions or suggestions for upcoming episodes to increase engagement around ALOUD content. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.